Hey guys, welcome to Chinese Emotion. I'm Jade. When you say to someone from a Western English-speaking country, "I like your necklace, it's so pretty," she will probably just say, "Oh, thank you." But when you say the same thing to a Chinese friend, 我喜欢你的项链，真漂亮, she might say, 是吗？你喜欢这条项链？那就送给你吧。Of course, this only happens when the item isn't very valuable to the owner and doesn't carry special sentimental meaning. Now imagine this situation. If you want to invite a Chinese friend to a dinner party, and you say, "You are welcome to join our dinner if you'd like." 如果你愿意的话，欢迎你来和我们一起吃晚餐。But your Chinese friend might think, this is just a polite way of speaking. He doesn't really mean it. I probably shouldn't go. These kinds of misunderstandings happen because of cultural and language differences. And I actually have quite a few personal experiences like this that I can share. These sentences are all very simple in both English and Chinese, but what's behind them is very different. Sometimes, the emotion you think you are expressing is not the emotion the other person receives. Or worse, they receive something completely different. So just learning a language is not enough for effective communication. Today I want to talk about how these cultural differences behind language can create misunderstandings, and help you understand the way Chinese people think. Let's start with the first example. I like your necklace. It's so pretty. In many Western English-speaking countries, this is usually just a simple compliment. In their cultures, communication tends to be more low context, which means the words themselves carry most of the explicit meaning. What you say is usually what you mean. In contrast, Chinese culture is genuinely more high context. That means a lot of meaning is not directly stated in words, but comes from context, relationships, and shared understanding. So in social situations, Chinese people often pay attention to what's between the lines, not just the literal meaning of what is being said. So when someone says, "I like your necklace," it can sometimes be interpreted as more than just a compliment. It may sound like, "I really like this, but I'm not comfortable directly asking for it." At the same time, Chinese culture is also influenced by collectivism, which values harmony and relationship maintenance. So if someone really likes something, offering it as a gift can sometimes be seen as the most appropriate response. It's not just generosity, it's also a way of maintaining the relationship. I've lived in Western English-speaking countries for several years, and I've gotten used to a much more direct way of giving compliments between friends and colleagues. Even though I'm Chinese, some of my communication habits have become more direct. Once, I was teaching a class for a student from Africa. At the beginning, we were introducing ourselves and talking a bit about culture. I had seen photos of traditional clothing from his country online. The colors and patterns were really beautiful and striking. So I said something like, 你们的传统服装非常漂亮，我很喜欢. And immediately he smiled and said, 下次送你一件吧. At that moment, I suddenly realized I had overlooked the fact that his country, like China, is also a high-context, collectivist culture, and I had used a very direct way of complimenting without adjusting for that difference. I've also heard a similar story. A beginner Chinese teacher once heard from American students say, "I love your earrings, they are so beautiful." And the teacher immediately took them off and gave them to the student. The student was completely shocked. So if you want to avoid this kind of misunderstanding when you are complimenting someone's clothing or accessories in Chinese context, you can say things like this. 这条项链非常适合你. Or, 你戴这条项链非常漂亮. This way, you are not only complimenting the object, but also linking it to the person. It becomes a compliment about how well something suits them, which reduces the chance of misunderstanding. Now let's move to the second example. When I first went to study in Australia, I didn't really understand Western culture very well. One day, a local schoolmate invited me to a barbecue dinner with his friends. He said something like this: "You are welcome to join our barbecue dinner if you'd like." When I heard this, I actually really wanted to go. But the phrase, "if you'd like," confused me a little. It sounded to me like this was just a casual invitation. He was just being polite, not really expecting me to join them. Sometimes what sounds polite in English may sound uncertain in Chinese. I wasn't sure. Since he said it, maybe he really did want me there. I struggled with that thought for a while, but in the end, I politely declined. What I didn't understand at the time was that in many Western English-speaking countries, expressions like "if you'd like" are often genuinely open invitations. They are intended to give you freedom of choice, not to reduce sincerity. In contrast, across China, especially in smaller cities or more traditional settings, invitations are often much more direct and enthusiastic. You might hear things like, 我们非常希望你能来。你一定要来啊。我们都盼着你来呢。Here, the focus is not just on giving an option, but on expressing genuine expectation and emotional connection. And in Chinese culture, accepting an invitation immediately can sometimes even feel a bit impolite. So people often say things like, 太麻烦你们了 or 算了，别麻烦了，下次吧 They often don't accept the first invitation and only say yes after being invited again. Generally speaking, in most Western English-speaking cultures, people highly respect personal space, individual choice, and low-pressure interaction. So invitations are usually phrased more gently, and refusals are respected without further insistence. In Chinese communication, however, what is commonly emphasized is relationship, real intention, and emotional clarity. Even if the other person refuses the first time, people may still insist a second or third time to show genuine sincerity. So if you are inviting a Chinese friend, you might say these sentences I just mentioned. This kind of stronger, more emotional invitation can actually be interpreted as a sign of sincerity. Many Chinese people tend to expect enthusiasm or even persistence when being invited, rather than just options and freedom as is common in Western English-speaking cultures. Of course, languages are always changing. Today, many younger Chinese people are exposed to Western media and international experiences, so their communication styles are becoming more mixed and flexible. But I think at the end of the day, even though languages and cultures are different, human emotions are very similar. And once we start understanding these differences, we naturally become better communicators. Everything I've talked about in this video is based on my personal experiences, reflections, and some general ideas from culture studies. But every culture has its own diversity, and people are always different. I'd really love to hear what you think. Feel free to share your own experiences in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.